Welcome back to another episode of the Anatomy of the Trade. Today we're gonna go through the market update, and specifically we're gonna uh, look at the crude oil and natural gas, not actually the market itself. Uh, and then we're gonna look at one of the trades that did not go well, and that was my trade in ENPH Energy, and hopefully that will be a valuable material for you guys. All right, and we're going to start with the crude oil. This is futures 4 hours chart, and we're just capturing kind of like the end of the rally in crude and the consolidation, the formation that the oil is in right now. So Franz, looking at this chart and looking at this trading range or some of the behaviors that the price and volume exhibit, what are your initial thoughts?
Well, one of the things, Ramon, and oil is kind of interesting in these lazy, hazy, crazy days of summer. But after the move up, right there where you've got your pointer, we've got a reaction. And it's interesting to me the way this reaction, it's somewhat, there's some analogs going across where it sells off, makes sort of a double bottom, and then rallies, and then does it again. And the second time it does it, actually, there's more volume coming in at the bottom of the range, which is probably some potentially that last bar. There's probably some demand in that, don't you think? And then one of the things that you like to talk about is the texture of the activity, the price activity becomes less volatile, and it looks as though volume itself is sort of, petering out a little bit. We're not getting the same kind of spikes that we were getting before. So my question, one of the things that you've pointed out many times is that when you enter a consolidation, the direction that you leave the consolidation from is often the same direction that you entered it from. So the initial bias is to the upside and until proven differently. And as I look at this, I'm wondering if there is enough evidence at this point to even decide what kind of bias we might be looking at. What do you think?
Hmm. Yeah, I don't really have a very clear view on the bias right now. So, let me repeat this. I don't know what's going to happen. It just doesn't give me really a big indication of, are we still going to go up? Are we going to go down? It's a question mark. So we only could rely on some of the observations that we could see. So when Franz has started with this, so let me just come back really quickly. So reaction before the last climactic run, so probably a preliminary supply. Climactic run, buy and climax, change of character, automatic reaction, and then that should define the support and the resistance of the trading range. Now we are seeing how we have a higher high, and then we have a series of higher lows. So I would be thinking that maybe an upsloping structure would be more appropriate here. So something like this, something like this. Maybe the medium line is somewhere here. So that's the current slope. And now as we go further, and we're thinking, okay, this is probably phase A, and this is phase B. Could we possibly be in the, we should look into two scenarios here. Distributional scenario, how would that look like? And please note, I'm just, walking through this and verbalizing some of the thoughts that I have. So
Mm-hmm.
therefore, we're calling them scenarios. So this could be potentially phase C with an upthrust and multiple tests. then if this is the case, we should have some kind of sign of weakness. That sign of weakness should continue to about maybe 36, 37, and then try to react back into the trading range. Could come back to 39 and then drop down. So that would be a more decisive picture for us to go about if that indeed happens. And we indeed have to have that sign of weakness first. That would produce some kind of action that's going to be so different than what we've seen before. We had the first change of character. We need to have a second change of character on the way out for the distributional scenario. For the reaccumulational scenario, we could still have attempts to go down and recover. So this would be a bullish scenario. And if it does so or not, we still have to see. And that's why I'm saying, to me, the structure as it is right now is a little bit not that coherent, not that visible. So in this type of spots, you just wait. You wait,
Mm-hmm.
you have your two scenarios, and whatever scenario is going to start unfolding, what you can do though is, if you are an intraday trader, you could intraday trade this, right? So this was a really good move after, a couple of failures right here, after demand is not picking up the price up. So you expecting a move to the downside. Well, here it is. So take that chunk and, that's a good profit right there. Or another suggestion here, when you are in doubt as to your analysis, what's going on, and you're not so sure, go to some other instruments where you probably have some kind of edge. And here we're looking at the natural gas. So we're looking at the energy sector today. And remember that big run in 2018 into the November high that was, kind of like a moment for the natural gas. And I think that we are on the edge of having another rally in natural gas. Look at the long-term trend, and we still have not broken that. We're still below the moving average here, 200 moving average. But we have been consolidating, and we have been consolidating uh, with the bullish outlook. Some stop in action in phase A.
Mm-hmm.
And then look at this rally right here. This is a really interesting rally. It has three moves up. It's very aggressive to the upside. There is always demand right there on all of the attempts to go up. And then after that, the reaction produces the low, which is the higher low, and then produces a spring. And after the spring, we have the higher low again. So very bullish development in this latest price action in this last month in July. And I think that the price is ready to overcome the previous intermediate high, and that would be the call. So I guess the thing here as we look both at oil and natural gas is when you don't understand the structure, when you don't understand the chart, when it confuses you, there is no reason to trade it. Or pick up a different time frame to trade it, for instance, a shorter time frame, and then go to the instruments, the ones that are actually make sense to you. So natural gas right now makes a lot of sense to me, and that's why obviously I'm looking for the opportunity to act on that. Franz, what are your thoughts here on the natural gas chart?
I think that's great advice. First of all, if you don't see something in one market, look to a related market or even a different market, or look to a different time frame. Just to keep an open mind. It does look somewhat climactic towards the end of that. It looks like stopping action, a lot of volatility, buyers and sellers duking it out right in there, and then the price stops going down, and we see somewhat lower on the downward reactions. We see somewhat lower volume on each of them. And the overall level of supply looks like it's also diminishing. So as you've taught us, that's supply goes away, and that's a bullish development. So it does still look as though there's quite a bit. If you go back and compare this, the volatility of this area versus, let's say, 2019 from in that February, much. It still needs to, I don't know, maybe it still needs to calm down a little bit more before it's finally ready, but maybe not. So
Mhm. Yeah, I
that's,
agree that
yeah.
the volatility here is a little bit too much. And I think it coincides with the, lockdown with COVID-19 volatility that we have had. So that's why, it's a good observation, uh, especially in this area right here. But then
Mm-hmm,
as we go further down, that volatility diminishes. We could see how the texture
mm-hmm,
changes from one, square to another. Look at the down bars right here. So, and the volume diminishes as well. So very interesting candidate right here. So we'll definitely follow up on that. All right.
mm-hmm,
Well, if this is just a quick market update for you on oil and natural gas, let's look at today's trade that didn't go well. That was my trade in InPhase Energy. I really like that renewable space. I really like this company. I really like how it moves. And then on the daily, this was the day of the entry. So some of the reasoning here, we were in the established uptrend, then we had a lot of volatility into the COVID reaction. A really good move up was the higher high that shows, element of strength. And then on the way down, look at the texture of the reaction compared to the way how the price moved on the previous reaction. So we see a lot of bullishness, and that's also on the background of somewhat diminishing supply characteristics. So I don't think that there was a big mistake on the entry right here. It's actually happened where it's supposed to be. And then the news comes almost, 2 days after on this big, big bar. So what is the news? A hedge fund that is shorting the stock is announcing accounting malpractice by the company that they've uncovered in their research. And that produces this big, big drop in the price, almost 30%. So the question on that particular day was, how do you behave? What do you do? Your stop loss is still somewhere here, kind of like, at the end, at the bottom of this bar, not necessarily right here. Actually, I don't even recall. Maybe it was right here. But how do you behave? Oh, this is a very abnormal move for one day. I mean, yes, you could have some days with gaps down and so on and so forth that could produce a lot of movement to the downside. But just for the day where the market is not necessarily moving aggressively down, and as a news for a stock with so much volume signature, this is an abnormality. So the logic, the thinking here was that this is abnormal. And if this is abnormal, if this is extreme, then we should have some kind of recovery, at least on the intraday basis, where we are recovering a portion of the losses. And that was the management of this trade. So position was not closed at this low with the expectation that the price is going to rebound. And just because the whole technical pattern has been demolished with this news, as with this price movement, the idea was that, I don't want to take this type of risk and, just want to get
mm-hmm,
out of this position and just not even just touch it just to see what's going to happen. So on the intraday, you see this a little bit better, going through this, almost 30% decline, leaving the position on, gap in the morning and then just exiting on the strength on the rally, um, which in retrospect probably would be a better decision to hold on and just to still be in this position and be in a profitable position. Another thought that I had also, coming back in somewhere here, but usually it's really hard emotionally to come back after such, big spike in volatility. And thank God that other, uh, you know, other stocks in the portfolio were behaving well, not to produce a big, dent on that particular day in that position and in the portfolio itself. So it really pays to have uh, multiple positions in the portfolio, diversified positions in the portfolio. And also, I think I was saved by just one entry. Would I have accumulated more shares by the time of the drop? That would have been a much more difficult decision whether to hold on or not. Franz, what are your thoughts here? I know that this is an unusual trade, but that's what we're discussing here with the anatomy of the trade.
Yeah, I think it's really a great lesson. There's an old saying that anything can happen, and this is an example of that. And so, risk management, position sizing, which I know you do, and it's a subject that's way beyond the scope of what we can talk about in this um, YouTube presentation, but you know, position sizing, diversification, because anything can happen. And then I think, understanding that on even when there are so-called accounting irregularities, which is kind of not good news. I mean, earnings reports and things like that can be somewhat transitory, but accounting irregularities, that kind of smells like fraud, and you don't want to be in a position where that's got that kind of a cloud hanging over it. So, but even understanding that, and understanding that when you get a gigantic move in one direction, there's going to be a reversion, some sort of mean reversion, and not to sell, in a complete panic as, the bottom falls out, because, people are going to take the other side of the trade at some point. It's probably going to make some kind of a, recovery, and that's a better place to think about, what you did. And I think you handled it great.
Yeah, it felt good the next day when, the exit was made. And I'm not even concerned about what has happened after that. It's kind of like an afterthought. I thought what was most important is what you've talked about, and that was the trade management. How do you deal with that type of extraordinary move? Do you close at the bottom here? Do you close as it goes through your stop loss level? Or do you realize exactly that the mean reversion is going to happen? And that was probably the best decision. Could have probably kind of like held it a little bit longer. Maybe the idea here would be to get out of a lot of shares and leave just a little bit just to see what's going to happen next. That could be also a solution, but the decision was just to get rid of this position completely. So again, we are trying to show you guys some of the trades that happen in the unusual way. I'm not showing you my profitable trades whatsoever, just because I think that there is more learning material in the mistakes rather than the profitable trades. But once those are closed, and profits are taken, and we are far away from the point of exit, then we'll definitely bring to your attention some of the trades that are profitable. So we'll talk about this. All right.
Yeah.
Well,
And I wouldn't even consider this a mistake. I mean, it's completely unforeseen news. I thought that, the rationale that you gave, looking at the texture of this reaction, where it occurred after the big sell-off. And I mean, I think all of your entry logic was right. You just got completely blindsided by something that's beyond your control. So, and that happens.
Yeah, it does happen, guys. All right. Well, thank you so much for watching this episode. As always, we're looking forward to new episodes with you, and have a wonderful summer. Franz, thank you so much.
Thank you, Ramon.